Well, I can't believe that I was able to get Kern Cherry in to talk to us today. She is an author, speaker, coach, and the owner of PRN Home Care. Welcome, Kern.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me, Holly. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice we met on Clubhouse and getting
Yeah.
to collaborate in this way. Yeah.
Yeah, I love meeting people in the healthcare business. I've been in healthcare for over 30 plus years. And so it's the root, and it's pretty much for me, it's what I do all the time. Most people don't know that, but
Yeah.
I've been in healthcare for, like I said, 30 plus years. My background is occupational therapy. But as you said before, I own a home care business where I help people stay in their homes as long as they want. And if they go to a facility, we can follow you there too.
Well, and I can't imagine with COVID hitting and hearing, the news of how the facilities were hit so hard that people
Mhm,
were so grateful that you had that business with the good
mhm.
caregivers to take care of them at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think more people
Hmm.
are probably thinking about what's their next move, and more people now, instead of making the automatic decision to put their loved one in a facility, whether it's personal care,
Hmm.
assisted living, or nursing home, you have to think a little twice. Is this something you can manage or not? And I can honestly say there are many situations where you don't really have a choice. And it's
Yeah.
okay. That's what I want to
Hmm.
tell people. It's okay
All
if you
right.
got to do that.
She said it's
Mhm.
okay. So, and so what's behind the drive and the passion? Is there a story behind your interest in starting that?
So many moons ago, I returned back to my hometown of Biloxi, Mississippi, and I often tell people I was planning not to stay, but we
Hmm.
stayed.
Hmm.
And during that time frame, we started. My husband and I both were in the field of occupational therapy, and we started working here in the nursing homes, and many on the Gulf Coast. And so, at some point, and I always say there's a story always behind a business where God kind of
Hmm.
just nudges you in the right direction. So we were working, and at the time, we were making probably more money than most people see in a lifetime, let alone a year. And so we were making really good money coming out of school and coming straight into the field as contract workers. It was really an awesome time for not just occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and everybody. But we got approached one time, and one of the clients really loved the way my husband worked with her husband. She asked us both to come work in the home and help her keep her husband at home. Well, yeah, she offered us like 10 an hour, and we were making well over that amount. I mean, it's just a lot. The therapists were making lots of money back then. So that being said, it was kind of like, you're polite. We do the Southern thing, and of course, we politely turn them down. Well, God has a way of showing you that that really wasn't about you. I mean, it really wasn't what he was trying to get you to do, right? And so, probably a year and a half later, the whole nation suffered a pink slip across the nation. And my husband and I looked at each other. I mean, everybody was out of a job. And so Medicare had changed its system, which ultimately put a lot of us out of work. And so we looked at each other, and it was like, well, what are we going to do? And we both were like, remember that client asked us to take care of people in their home? Well, yeah, that's something we can do. So our background, started well before occupational therapy. We already were taking care of people when we were going through working through school. And so for us, we found it as a way to actually keep people in the home. So the funny thing is we started off charging less money than she even offered us an hour. Now we didn't have that job opportunity, but to make sure that God let us know it was him, he sent us our first 24-hour client, not too much longer after that. So yeah, that's really how we got in the field. And people talk about pivoting. We've had COVID in our lives many different times. It might not been COVID as we know it right now, but as a business person, you learn to pivot pretty early in business.
So maybe you have a book in there somewhere about the
Oh,
multi pivot.
yes, 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 yes. Many stories. And that's something I actually do that as well. I do believe in sharing stories because most of the time people don't understand the story you have inside of you, which are many, can help somebody else. So your story is not your story. It is for somebody else. So yes, there's definitely a story in there.
Well, and that's such a good point because, people are like, who am I? Who cares about my story? I'm too shy. But when you put it that way, your story is going to help someone else. You just need to get it out there. Hmm.
It's a testimony.
Hmm.
You're testifying how you come through.
Hmm.
And so, and I do several book anthologies, and actually I'm doing one now called Make It Happen, and
Hmm.
also done one called Trailblazers Who Lead. But the point in doing those
Hmm.
is that you really are impacting somebody's life. Somebody could be on the verge of taking their life, but when they hear your story was meant for them. So
Hmm.
I always tell people, it is your time. If you're not sharing your story and you hadn't taken the moment to do that, do that. And I look forward to during this conversation. Hopefully, there's a caregiver out there that hears what we're talking about today and get inspired to get some help.
Yeah.
Is what I hope they learn from what we talk about today as well.
So when you talk about get some help, yeah, caregivers, we tend to take care of everything we're supposed to. And, it's this large target and we eventually work to, the center where we're at. And that leads to burnout. So I'm sure you've seen that in your caregivers and you've been proactive in helping them prevent it. What is your experience with that?
So many times, so in my field, I work with both people, a lot of baby boomers, and of course, a lot of seniors that, their husband is receiving the care or their wife is receiving the care. And I find even in that situation, a lot of them are in denial that they are in burnout.
Okay.
Burnout affects you mentally and physically. And most of the time, it doesn't show up until you actually are forced to slow down,
Mhm.
right? And so, and I've been in many situations where the caregiver actually passes away before the person who's receiving care. And
Okay.
that's because the caregiver did not take the time to take care of themselves. I tell people all the time,
Mhm.
if you're not doing this care, if you were pulled out completely, who would provide care for this person?
Mhm.
So if you really are that concerned about that person, then
Mhm.
you have to take time to take care of yourself. And
Yes.
part of that is to make sure that you create time that's just for you. Most of us as caregivers, and I'm speaking from a personal level because I'm taking care of my mom, and my mom, who is right now, we had to make the choice whether to leave her in the facility or not. And we had to do that because of the level of care she needs now. But there were years where we had to take care of her. And you can guarantee that we had people that came in to help because I can't do it all.
Mhm.
You can't work 24/7. It leads to fatigue, it leads to frustration, it creates where you're stressed out, and it's really grueling on the body where you're just grinding all the time. And then you feel guilty
Mm,
constantly. The guilt is constantly, and I'm speaking from experience, it's constant. As long as they're on this earth, it's constant. And even when they go, you're still feeling guilty, right? So this drains the body.
mm,
It pulls on the body because your mind is constantly in the back of your mind. You're concerned about this person. So can you imagine working a 12-hour shift
yeah.
and your mom or dad is at home by themselves and you know their memory is slowly going and you're like, what do I do? Do I get some help?
Mhm,
Most people don't even think about that. And
mhm,
I tell people all the time, reward yourself,
mhm,
even if it's for a short period of time.
mhm.
Get somebody to help you so that even during that time period, that person is there. They're your eyes, they're your ears. You can call them at any time or text and say, how's mom doing?
Mhm. And the nice thing, if you have fresh eyes coming in to take care of, that's where they notice, oh, their skin looks different, their eyes look different. And you're like, I don't know, because you see them day in, day out, and you're not noticing that trend. So it actually helps improve the care because you get those fresh eyes.
Mhm. And they can see decline that you can't see,
Hmm.
right? Because that's mom. Mom looks the same as she did 5 years ago, right? No. But but in your eyes, that's mom. It's just like what it's a role reversal, really, is what you're dealing with. So it's very concerning that most people take on this pressure being the caregiver and not getting help. It really starts right there, getting the help that you need.
So what do you tell people when they're like, I can't afford it? We're barely paying our bills, and I used to work and now I'm home, so we have even less money. I can't hire somebody to come help. And so do you teach them how to network? Um, mm,
So 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 for me, and I have done this by making sure that I put resources at the fingertips of people by creating a TV show and doing having a resource guide and I used to run a conference called Right Resource Information and Planning for the Elderly. And that being said, some of the things that I would always encourage people to do that how much is your time worth to you?
mm,
How much is your life worth to you?
right.
Eight, just say if you got somebody, you paid them between, and it depends on what area you live in, but let's just say you were able to get somebody for 8 to 10 an hour. Now I know in some areas you're gonna have to go up,
Yeah, we're in
but
California. You'll have to double
oh well, oh well,
that.
But that being
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
is your life worth so little that you won't even get somebody for a
Mhm,
few hours a day, so many times a week?
mhm,
Once you start doing that, I encourage people just
mhm,
get somebody 3 times a week,
mhm,
3 times a week, 3 to 4 hours a day, and
mhm,
allow yourself a time to not think about that. Your mom, your dad, whoever is, whether it's your child, whoever you're taking care of,
mhm,
get somebody in for 3 to 4 hours a day. Now, are there resources out there? Well, California is one of the leading states in the nation when it comes to caregiving, and Florida. So we know that y'all have way a lot more resources than some of the other states and countries, right? But that being said, in all states, there are some resources, and something is better than nothing, right?
mhm,
There are many resources that will give you respite hours, right? And yes, there are many that have waiting lists, but I
mhm,
always tell people once you know you're going to be caring for this person on a regular basis, you need to start calling organizations like Area on Aging. Now, that name kind of changes a little bit
mhm,
in
mhm,
different states,
mhm.
but it's a really good resource area
Yeah.
that actually has other resources underneath it. You
Mhm,
know, Medicaid is a state run program, And so if your person qualifies, then you can also get some caregiving hours during that time frame. So I want to make sure that people understand when I say Medicaid, that doesn't mean that the person has to be making $600 or less a month.
Mhm.
To be honest, in Mississippi, which is considered one of the poorest state in the union, our cap is like a little over 2,000 that person can make a month and still get Medicaid waiver
Right.
program.
Yeah.
So don't eliminate yourself because it says Medicaid. Medicaid means that it's represented and that's state money. So always apply for that. Don't I also want to highly encourage people to understand that home health is not your opportunity to take a break. Those people are in there, they're provided by Medicare because they're a medical necessity. That means when they send a nurse in, that nurse is there to check your vitals, to make sure that you're doing okay. For diabetics, check their level, diabetic level, those type of things. They're not there so you can go to the grocery store. Okay, their aide that comes to give a bath, they're not there so you can go and do something else. You may have to help the aide if your loved one needs additional assistance. So that being said, I highly encourage people to check into those resources. Now, of course, there's the free resources, but remember, people help you sometime because they see a need. But if you balance that need, say you have a church person or the church is helping you, if you balance that with some paid hours,
Mhm.
then they won't burn out as well.
Yeah.
If you depend and drain your free resources without incorporating paid resources, you
Mhm.
could run out of the free resources.
Right.
So keep
Everyone's
that
in
in mind.
burnout.
Yeah,
And
everybody's gonna have caregiver burnout and
yeah.
fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I want to go back to the Medicaid, Medi-Cal. So what that allows people to do is actually get paid. When you say get hours, they can actually get paid to take care of their loved one. And so if they're not getting paid right now, that's definitely something to check out.
Yes, now that is not in Mississippi, so that you know, there are many states like us that
Mhm.
no, you can be the caregiver, and I get this call all the time. Uh, we're not California, so we're not that forward leading. And Florida, I'm sure allows the same. But that being said,
Mhm.
again, there are resources, even if they're not paying you, they
Mhm.
can pay others. And I'm speaking from experience because I've actually been to the meetings where
Mhm.
they told organizations like mine, you can't take care of your own mother,
Mm.
right? So
Mhm.
unfortunately, I know what's best for my mom, but I'd have to hire somebody else out to provide that service through the Medicaid waiver.
How did you manage the guilt or the decision making? And whether no, I promised her I would never put her in a home. And so how what's the tip for that?
Okay, so the guilt never leads. I just can tell you that right now. That's a long guilty feeling that you just really have to come to terms that you don't have the capability to do that. So I personally myself had pulmonary hypertension, which over the long term it has a deteriorating effect on my body as well. So whereas in my younger days, and maybe if I didn't have pulmonary hypertension, I could do a lot of lifting and things like that.
Mhm.
But with that, I had to come to terms with the fact that I am not the person that can provide all the quality services that she needs. If you really sit down and evaluate what you're able to do, and I highly suggest people do that.
Mhm.
Make a list, take some time and make a list on what you can do, right?
Mhm.
And once you do that list, if what you can't do outweighs what you can do,
Mm.
you need to really look at
Mhm.
other sources. And sometimes it's not putting them in a nursing home. It could be putting them in assisted living where
Mhm.
you have some assistant, especially with people with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just that they're wondering their body, well, their body is in pretty good shape most of the time until, they start to decline, but they need that extra pair of eyes.
Mm.
You can't be up
Mhm.
in the middle of the night, and that person, because that person has sundials.
Yeah.
You just can't do that. You will find yourself having many strokes and not even know you're having them.
Mm.
And so again, what will happen if you're no longer in the picture?
Mhm.
Will that person be in a facility anyway?
Yeah.
Ask yourself that.
Mhm.
And so, at least if you're here and they are in a facility, then you can I still have caregivers. Not right now because of COVID, but we had caregivers prior to COVID going and sitting with my mom because I still felt like I needed those extra pair of eyes. That nursing homes is group care. Know what I'm saying is true because I worked in many and
Mhm.
many years. It's group care. So having that pair of eyes to go in and
Mhm.
make sure that they're getting bathed and fed and things like that, yeah, it's important. So
Mhm.
you continue the process of doing that. Now, there are many seniors who have saved their money to be at home.
Mhm.
And I always tell people, give them that opportunity
Mhm.
before you choose to put them away, right? And not when I say put them away in a
Yeah.
facility,
Right, right.
okay? Because if they, there is long-term care. Some people have it. I think more of us will have it as we get older. And that is an option. And then some people have a good bit of income and they should have a right to stay at home with 24-hour care if they need that.
Mhm.
So, and sometimes you can get live-ins. I don't think you can get it right now with COVID.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that, but those are options for you. But
Mhm.
I highly recommend, no matter how much care that person needs, get you a break, even if it's 3 to 4 times a day. Most companies like mine provide anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to 24 hours at any time.
I remember my first job. I hadn't graduated yet from nursing. My grandmother had a home care agency, and I remember you just do whatever they need. Yes, it's a bedpan, or it's polish the silver, or cook a high grade hamburger for the dog. It's whatever has them feel like home is running smoothly, and so anyway,
That they're still in control.
yes.
They still want to feel like they have control of their life.
Mhm.
I used to, in the beginning, when we used to actually go out and I would sit with some of my clients, I would sometimes just take them driving down the beach,
Mm,
or
nice.
and getting out, going to the store. Most of the time, when a caregiver leaves their job, the
Mhm.
last thing they want to do is go have to fix a meal, not just at their own home, but at their mom's home, or come bring her some leftovers, or go to the grocery store twice, or they don't, you don't really want to do that. You say, well, I'm doing it anyway. Sure, you are, but you're doing it times two, and it's going to drain you. At some point, you're going to resent
Mm,
your loved one.
mhm,
And that is what you don't want to do. You don't want to feel like your life is out of control. You don't want to feel like somebody else has control of your life. And let's face it, I can tell you, my and I've just seen this with some of my clients. They, as parents, as we get older, and I hate to say it, I'm thinking to myself, I hope I'm not like this, but we can put unrealistic expectations on our children
mhm,
just because they're our children. Well,
mhm,
how come you can't do that? Well, how come you can't come over and spend time with me. You hadn't been over since yesterday. Well, they might be tired, right?
Mhm.
But if they have somebody there talking to them
Mhm.
and keeping them feeling like they're still alive,
Mm.
if you think about the fact that they have probably lost most of their friends,
Mhm.
some have already lost their loved one,
Mhm.
their lifetime partner.
Mhm.
And so you to have somebody there that would just listen to them,
Mhm.
just to hear them. That's really what drives them, and that's why they always calling you. So I tell people, get a companion,
Mhm.
get a companion. And
Mhm.
if you're not sure that they will allow that person in the house, start off with a few days.
Mhm.
You may have to start with one. I've had to do that before. Run a tester until they will let my person in. I don't want a person in my house. Then the person gets there and they won't let the person go. So try it. Don't. I had a client, and I'm gonna tell this story because she was one of the toughest clients I've had over the many years. And her daughter hired us because of her husband had cancer,
Mm.
and my husband and I, before he passed away, she called us and we came by and we came to pray over him because, I believe in prayers.
Mhm.
And she said, I would have you take care of my mom, but she is tough and mean. And I was like, okay. And guess what? That's what I do for a living. I
Mm.
take care of it doesn't really matter. So
Mhm.
she was like, you won't be able to provide. I said, well, just give us a shot. Just
Mhm.
let us try.
Mhm.
And we were there until Hurricane Katrina. We even took care of her
Mm.
during her. Matter of fact, her daughter called us the morning before Hurricane Katrina hit to ask us to take care of her mom
Mm.
during Katrina because she had went up to stay with her daughter. And so, was she mean? Yes, she was very mean. She was a chain smoker. She was 96 years old, and she was a tough cookie. But it was all part of being in control.
Mm. Mhm.
But she allowed us the opportunity, and
Mhm.
several years later, we were still there until she had to move.
And she lived till 100 or?
Well, so the story about Katrina, we took care of many people, and many of our clients lost everything.
Mm.
She did not. She did not lose that. She didn't lose a shingle on her house, not one. But what people don't understand about taking care of the elderly is when they lose their home, whether
Mm.
it's because they have to move or
Mhm.
because it's wiped out, it's a death in the family to them. And
Yeah.
so we unfortunately, I
Mhm.
wasn't able to convince the daughter to allow her to stay here because her daughter unfortunately lost everything
Oh.
and had to move.
Mm.
And so that being said, um, she moved her mom. And
Mm.
like a lot of my clients that were moved,
Mhm.
I would say that moved probably six months.
Mm.
Most of them didn't last 6 months.
Mhm.
I had another client, we took care of 5 years we took care of him plus. And his parents, you asked, how do you deal with when you make that promise that you will never move them
Mhm.
and that you would never put them in a facility? Well, unfortunately, um, this client was in the facility for a little while and he was patient. He's very patient. He knew his sons had to run the business and he was a very successful person. But the sons were older as well and they finally made this decision to leave him in the nursing home.
Mm.
Now, yes, there was yeah, he didn't live long. I can say that.
Mhm.
And it is a very hard decision. But I encourage people that if you have to make that decision, make sure that they don't have the resources to live on their own,
Mhm.
because then you do feel like you've done all you can.
Mhm.
If they have the resources, then you may, feel that it's your fault, but it's not. You just can't do it all. You
Mhm.
can't do it all. And it's okay if you can't do it all.
Mhm.
And so I encourage you to find peace in your decision, and know that sometimes it's best for your health, because really and truly, they don't want to outlive you either. That being said, sometimes it's a matter of your health
Mhm.
versus theirs, right?
Right.
And so their health is sometimes more, they can't get what they want. But in this case, it was more of
Mhm.
they couldn't take care of him anymore. And that was unfortunate, but yeah.
It's like,
Katrina was not nice for
mhm.
my seniors. I can
Oh,
honestly say that.
yeah.
So,
Well, it's like the airplane, oxygen masks are going to drop. Moms, parents, you need to put the oxygen on in order to be a caregiver for your child, then do the oxygen for your child. So, same thing, you need to give yourself oxygen, a break. And, some people are like, I can do it, I can do it. But you made a good point. You're going to start resenting them. So if you're still feeling like, oh, I can do it, I'm not wimpy, I'll be successful, I'm not a quitter, man, am I frustrated and resentful. Okay, well then none of that counts. If you've moved into that resentment, it's time to do something different and get some help. Yeah.
and you also have to remember that your parents are not the only ones being impacted by this. So
Mhm.
if you have a husband or a wife,
Mhm.
they're impacted by this.
Mhm.
You have children, even if they're adult children,
Mhm.
they're suffering because you have decided to put your whole life on hold
Mm.
to take care of a loved one.
Mhm.
You have to find balance. And it's if you find the balance by incorporating care, you will find that it's going to be better for everybody. I often tell my clients and my caregivers, you should always be willing to pay to continue to do what you love, but pay for what you don't really enjoy doing. And
Mhm.
even if it's caring for your parent,
Mhm.
find somebody to come in to do the cooking, to
Yeah.
do the cleaning, to do the shopping.
Mhm.
I mean, at the end of the day, it might be something you love, but at the same time, do you really want to do a couple of houses? Really? And so, yes, you may not mind, but it will be so much easier on not just you and your loved one, but your family. And by the way, some of us have friends that are really close as well. So
Mhm.
it's almost to the point where you're being selfish, to
Mhm.
where you're not even considering the fact that you're hurting yourself and
Mhm.
you're hurting others in the process of making it all around that loved one. So get help. I always say get help, and that will help you detour burnout, because it's definitely real.
Amen. Well, thank you, Kern. Is there any last gem you wanted to toss out there? That was fantastic as we're wrapping up our conversation.
So I encourage you to seek also some groups. Uh, you should
Mhm.
talk about some of the things that you're encountering as caregivers. A lot of times we hold things in and we hold them internally.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, like guilt, we hold that internally. We don't talk about it. Also, I encourage you to bring your siblings into the fold
Mhm.
as well, because oftentimes, there's only one, right? Let's face it, most of the time. Now, I have met some great families where there's been more than one or everybody pitched in, but most of the time it's only one. So if your siblings can't be involved, see if they can help out some financially. Maybe they can come give you a break in the summer or in the holidays or whatever.
Mhm.
All those things help, and all those things are needed. Also, don't feel like you have to throw all your finances
Mm,
at this as well.
mhm,
Don't go completely broke
mhm,
taking care of your loved one, because when they do, and if they do
mhm,
pass, you still have to go on with your life.
mhm,
And again, you're going to have some resentment if
mhm.
you have put everything into them and left nothing for yourself. Now, there you have to have a balance, but that being said, you do need to consider that. So use the resources that are available. I have some people that don't want people coming into their houses.
Mhm.
I truly encourage you to to take the next step and try it, even for a couple of hours.
Mhm.
And I do recommend use the agency
Mhm.
if you can,
Mhm.
because the agency is going to do background checks.
Yeah.
They're going to do a little deeper. And you know what else? When a person doesn't show,
Mhm.
and you got that party that you got to get to, or that
Yeah.
are you looking
Massage.
forward to being off,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
want that sleep that you really need.
Mhm.
An agency will have a backup, or at least
Mhm.
not, occasionally they
Mhm.
don't, but most of the
Mhm.
time
Mhm.
they do. At least I highly stress in my business that we always have a backup for our clients.
Yes.
That being said,
Mhm.
individually you may not, and you are at your own responsibility when you hire somebody, as I say, off the street. So
Right.
consider those
Right.
things as well.
No,
Do your homework.
that's super important because if you are afraid of someone coming in your home and you don't go through an agency, because you make sure they're bonded, they don't have a criminal history, they don't have a secret identity, that people have had people steal or other things, and that's your best chance to make sure your loved one is safe, their things are safe, and mostly the backup for sure, because someone is always going to get sick, or car doesn't work or something, and what are you going to do at that point? So very good.
Yeah. And I also want to encourage you, if you're in a situation where your loved one has hired somebody and you don't trust that person that's in that house,
Hmm.
then you can uh, put in for conservatorship. It is a process,
Hmm.
but sometimes you do have to get the courts involved. And some people actually have to do this with the other siblings or whoever,
Hmm.
because it's important. Elder abuse or care, or caring for loved ones, there's abuse. And so that being said, you have to get the courts involved to do that. And it doesn't take away all your rights, as sometimes we like to believe. It creates an extra pair of eyes,
Hmm.
so that the money isn't depleted. And trust me, I have been in situations where I was begging that they get a conservatorship, because I have seen people give away hundreds of thousands of dollars on the phone, over the internet, being scammed, and in their supposedly right mind, but they needed conservatorship to take over before they gave it all away. So
Hmm.
do that. I'm always available. You can find my company, PR and Home Care Services.com, online. You can also go, and there's also some of my resources under the Right Conference, rightconference.com as well. And for me personally, KearnCherry.com. I'm on the internet. I'm on most social media platforms, loving Clubhouse right now. And there are caregiving groups on Clubhouse, believe it
Oh,
or not.
oh,
There are caregiver meetings on Clubhouse, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, one of my favorite
you're
sites.
super cool.
Yeah, I love
You
being on. I
are.
love it. So I'm encouraging you. reach out. And I've enjoyed the conversation, Holly. And, so thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. What a privilege. Thank you for coming.